It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Two stories remain as unbeatens collide for the title.
Could it get any more dramatic?
Jim Harbaugh and the Wolverines are looking to finish the mission, while Michael Penix Jr. and the Huskies hope to write their perfect ending.
The final chapter, and the stakes couldn't be higher.
A new playoff champion will be crowned. The College Football Playoff National Championship. Number 1 Michigan versus number 2 Washington. Monday at 7:30 Eastern on ESPN.
The dynamic fantasy hockey duo is back once again for the Monday episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. All of the news and waiver targets you need, including Connor Bedard, Jack Hughes, young stars down with injury, and of course, Monday's bets. Let's get this paper.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back inside the lab, everybody, to your daily source for fantasy hockey news. It's the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, and I am privileged to be joined by my esteemed co-host, Mr. Steele Roden, on this side of the microphone. It's your boy, Big Flip Livingstone. Thank you for making us your first listen every single day. Steele and I are here for you Monday through Friday. It's been a little choppy over the holidays, but we're back in full swing, baby. Every single Monday through Friday, you can check us out. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Steele, it feels like it's been a while since you and I have been back together doing this. Shout out to you. Happy New Year. Let's get it, though, because there is a lot to get to. Connor Bedard, Jack Hughes will kick off the episode that way. Of course, our top waiver wire targets, Monday's bets. We got 4 games. Right over to you, brother. Connor Bedard, if you want to start there, I think we should. What's your take on the hit? I think it's clean, but what's your take on this situation?
Yeah, obviously sucks for all fantasy GMs out there and the Chicago Blackhawks, but you can't do anything in this situation because it was a clean hit. And I understand there was a little bit of a size difference between Connor Bedard and Brendan Smith, who was coming right down the middle over the offensive blue line. And you got to keep your head up in this league. And they're going to be – this is one of the best players and one of the most touted players probably for the next decade and close to maybe 2 decades for Connor Bedard. So people are already aware of what he's bringing to this organization and into the league. So he's got to keep his head up when he's going coast to coast over the offensive blue line. And obviously, again, Brendan Smith just caught him right on the button there. Clean hit, elbow was down right through the chest. There was obviously a little bit of head contact right there on the chin because of the size difference, but the incidental or the initial contact was chest and elbow was kept down. So clean check, but obviously when you're the Chicago Blackhawks and you're a teammate of Connor Bedard, you got to go after him. You got to step up for your teammate, your rookie, who's probably going to win the Calder Trophy, depending on how soon he can come back and how well he's already been playing. But this is a significant loss for fantasy GMs out there because a lot of them were taking Connor Bedard, especially in keeper leagues. He's probably the first overall draft pick off the board. He's got 15 goals, 18 assists, for 33 points total on the season. He's been absolutely killing it for the Blackhawks. But right now, the Chicago Blackhawks were already one of the worst teams in the NHL. They're absolutely doomed without him now. They are just as bad as the San Jose Sharks, who only are 3 points back of the Blackhawks.
They might be worse, actually.
They might be worse. It's hard to say because the San Jose Sharks are on another 11-game losing streak right now, but they're just as bad without Connor Bedard in the lineup.
Speaking of that lineup, I implore you to go check out Daily Faceoff and have a look at these lines because
it's bad.
No disrespect to the likes of Isaac Phillips, Brent Saney, Zach Sanford, Reese Johnson. I don't even know who those guys are, Steele. And look, you and I should know them. No disrespect. This lineup is not an NHL caliber lineup.
No.
And look, you and I talk a lot about bets. If you're betting on the Chicago Blackhawks at all while Connor Bedard's out, good for you because you have more cojones than I ever will. This team is bad. I said it last week before Bedard even went out. Now they're doomed is right, Steele. Nailed that one fantasy-wise. Huge hole to fill. We'll talk about some options around the break, of course. Big-time bets as well. this just sucks for Connor Bedard. It also hurts the NHL right ahead of the All-Star game where this league has a hard enough time showcasing its talent. They needed Bedard there. And who knows, maybe out of some miraculous thing, he can come back in a month. I don't know if that's going to be enough time for him to recover. Keep an eye on his ability to come back and be confident, though. 118 shots already, Steele. Clearly, he is ready for the NHL speed and pace. That's been silenced. Jack Hughes, however, pace, not a problem for this guy, but staying in the lineup clearly starting to be a concern. And I'm going to turn this one over to you for obvious reasons, Steele, but there's some people in the fantasy communities, kudos to them all, that have different approaches to things. Hit me with your take on this. Injuries are something you have to take into account. Is there a way to predict them? Of course not. But there are some players, Patrick Laine and others. I'm not saying Jack Hughes is Patrick Laine, but Patrick Laine is one of those guys that is very obviously fantasy value impacted by injuries. I'm done talking. What's your take on Jack Hughes, who is once again on a fall, looking like he's going to miss some time?
Yeah, another superstar in the league who just goes down to injury, and this is something that he's dealt with throughout his entire NHL career, trying to stay healthy and in the lineup for his organization. And again, this was just one of those fluky plays where there was no contact on him. He was taking the puck over the blue line. It looked like he toe picked, tripped a little bit. And it's an undisclosed injury. We don't know exactly what it is. My best guess is it has something to do with his knee or a groin injury, but it's definitely lower body. But this is a superstar in the league. And obviously there was a lot of back and forth with Jack Hughes and, Flip and I and with Blake on the podcast about where to take him. And it's just one of those players for me where obviously I agree wholeheartedly that he is a superstar in this league and he is one of the faces in this league and he's taking over the last couple of years. No question about that. But for me personally, you got to take into consideration the injuries. You go back to, what was it? Definitely over 10 years ago now when Sidney Crosby was going, with his concussions on a regular basis.
He was banged up.
As a fantasy owner and a fantasy GM, where do you take him in the fantasy draft when he goes down to concussion and injuries very easily? His draft stock, again, he's still probably one of the best players in the league right now. We're seeing him put on a show for Pittsburgh this entire season so far. But that's something you got to take in consideration, especially during that time period for Sidney Crosby.
For sure, that time period,
Yeah, for that time period.
Yeah.
And
he's changed his style a little bit, which maybe that's what Jack Hughes needs to do, perhaps.
Exactly, and that's exactly what I'm trying to get towards, too. Jack Hughes, again, this was a fluky injury. He was just skating and he tripped and something happened in his lower body and his leg. So that just happened. That's just one thing you can't have any control over. But when you're drafting your team, you got to take into consideration the injury factor for some of these players when you're drafting them.
Jack Hughes, 32 games, 45 points. He has been banged up this year as well, and
he's missed 6 or 7 games already. I don't know how long he's going to be out for now, but
his skating ability alone is right up there in the elite echelon of the top skaters in the league. Obviously, Connor McDavid in a whole other realm. His ability to push the puck at that pace puts defenders on their heels immediately, and he has that kind of game-changing offensive talent. I hope he comes back soon, though, because my side of this take when it comes to who I would rather. Can I deny, though, when you and I were talking about JT Miller or Jack Hughes this season, and JT Miller right at the same time, I'm pretty sure that Jack Hughes was going down, put up another 3-point night, and the Vancouver Canucks are on fire. The Devils having some struggles. We're not going down the JT Miller, Jack Hughes angle today, Steele, as much as I know you'd probably be down for that. We just need to highlight this because, once again, fantasy owners out there of Jack Hughes are going to have to get creative, and we know that is going to be tricky. I got 5 targets for y'all around the break. We'll keep it short and tight because I know Steele's got some targets. We got bets to talk about, but, we got to also talk about our friends from Game Time. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. You never want to be stressed out when buying tickets for your favorite event, concerts, theater, comedy, and of course, sports. Steele and I love the Game Time app for buying tickets to NHL, UFC, even the NFL. I'm right here on the border. Shout out the Bills. Big game. Let's go. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use code Locked On for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
Hey everyone, Chris from Locked On Avalanche here. If you like using debit over credit, I just learned about something that's definitely a game changer. Discover Cashback Debit. It's a checking account that rewards everyone with cash back on everyday purchases, which means you can get cash back on NHL tickets or head-to-toe hockey gear to make this season a total win. Check out eligibility and terms at discover.com/cashbackdebit. Discover Bank, member FDIC.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Go to check out Locked On Sports Day. They've launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. They're here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus the national shows covering every single league. So go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. And again, thank you so much for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. Have a great day out there. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, the follow button, and leave a 5-star review. We appreciate all that love and support. That's why we do this every Monday with the Waiver-Wire targets, trying to help you out there with your weekly matchups. Number one on my list, Flip. Before we get to a couple of guys that I believe we're sharing or from the same team at least, I got to talk about this guy because I mentioned him in the preseason. I mentioned him during the draft as one of those late steal picks. Didn't really pan out the first 3 months, but he's gotten hot over the last stretch of games.
I'm intrigued.
Jonathan Drouin of the Colorado Avalanche, rostered at 22% right now on Yahoo. He's up 16% from last week. He's got 9 goals, 21 points in 38 games this season. But like I said, he started off real cold. He's been real hot of lately. He's got 7 power play points. The peripherals are pretty insignificant. They're pretty weak, but they're creeping in the right direction. Nevertheless, 3-game point streak for Drouin right now with 4 goals, 5 points total. He's got 13 points in his last 12 games. So he's really feeling it on that top line now with Nathan McKinnon. Like I said, he's got that history there. And again, like I said, this, in the preseason during the draft time, this probably wasn't the best suggestion. One of the best names coming out of my mouth, but he's finally starting to find his groove with Colorado right now. I like where his head's at. I like his speed right now too. He's really using his feet out there, which I haven't seen from him in the last couple of seasons. So Jonathan Drouin, go pick him up if you need a fill in.
Nathan McKinnon, anyone playing with Nathan McKinnon and it's available right now, you have to be jumping on it. And kudos to you for circling back on this one because, you were high on Jonathan Drouin, but it made sense. We loved the McKinnon angle. We loved him getting a fresh start on a winner. A lot of things were going his way. And again, perhaps, I say this a lot. The problem was between the ears for this kid because the offensive talent is there. Another very weird. My first target, a guy that I talked a lot about at draft season, that I thought the opportunity, playing on a good team, increased minutes for Morgan Geekie didn't work out, doing basically nothing to start the year. And now all of a sudden, moving up the lineup, getting to play, I believe right now, let me bring that up because that's what really excited me when I looked at this player, Morgan Geekie. And we are going to share some players in a second, but shout out to his brother also. Centering the top line right now with David Pastrnak. How do you like them apples? Also on the top power play unit with David Pastrnak. Tease to bets. Morgan Geekie also in his last 5 games. You mean the numbers. 2 goals, 3 assists. He likes to throw his body around. Shots on net, penalty minutes, and the ice time on the rise in a big way. Morgan Geekie also available. 9% in Yahoo. 3 on ESPN. 4 games for Boston this week. Arizona, St. Louis, the struggling Golden Knights, and the Colorado Avalanche, who have been allowing crooked number goals. I'm liking this week for Boston and Morgan Geekie.
I really like the fact that you're mentioning Geekie and the Boston Bruins because that actually just reminded me. I probably should have had this player on this list, but I'll just mention him right now. I picked up Trent Frederick, who's been playing really great from the Boston Bruins. He was on that top line, had 2 goals in that 7-3 win against the Tampa Bay Lightning. The peripheral stats are really good. So Trent Frederick could be another guy from the Bruins to keep an eye on to see how much playing time and opportunity he continues to get. But he's been really great the last 7 games. Let's get over to some of the same players from the same team that we've got here. Dallas Stars. I've got 2 players from the same team, and I'll just rattle them off real quickly because I know you want to talk about one.
Sure.
Mason Marchment, 26% rostered right now. He's got 13 goals, 30 points on the season. Again, another player that started off the year very slow, very sloppy. He had 0 points in his first 6 games, but currently on a 4-game point streak with 9 points in that time.
Bang.
He's really caught fire for the Dallas Stars, even so on this 3-game losing streak they're on right now.
Yeah.
But the peripherals are great. 32 penalty minutes. He's a banger league beauty, 76 shots. He's on pace for 65 points, which would be a career high. And again, like I said, he's really caught fire since the 0 games and 0 points in the first 6 games of the season. So he's continuing to feel his game right now. And the second line of the Dallas Stars looks real deadly. Tyler Seguin, Mason Marchment, Matt Duchene has been getting it done as Rupe Hintz and Joe Pavelski struggle a little bit. Again, like I said, on the 3-game losing streak. And then real quickly, because I know you are a fan favorite of this player, Thomas Harley. I got to mention him after what you said last week and the week prior. 31% rostered right now. He's up 11% from last week. And this is huge for Thomas Harley because obviously bad news with the good news. Miro Heiskanen is out on a week-to-week basis with a lower body injury, I believe. Thomas Harley, I would expect to get a lot more opportunity. He's already playing just under 20 minutes of average ice time, but from what I've seen and what he's capable of, I expect him to be put in a position where Miro Heiskanen was. He's got 9 goals, 10 assists, 57 shots, 68 blocks, 20 hits. And again, why I think he's going to get some opportunity, not right away, but shortly. The Stars are trying out a new power play with 5 forwards on that first unit. If that doesn't go according to plan, I would expect Harley to be moved up to that first unit in that Heiskanen position. But as of right now, it's the top 3 line: Rupe Hintz, Joe Pavelski, Jason Robertson, Tyler Seguin, and I believe Jamie Benn on the first power play unit. So if that doesn't go according to plan, Thomas Harley's your number 1 guy. He'll move up to that PP1.
You know I love Thomas Harley. Don't need to get into that because you covered it so nicely, and I spoke about him, I think, 2 Waiver-Wire Mondays ago. So we'll keep that tight. Mason Marchment, however, when a guy gets the opportunity that he is getting, and I know Tyler Seguin is an aged player, but he is having a good season. Matty Duchene's having a good season. It's a nice balanced line.
Yeah.
And Mason Marchment was one of those names, Steel fantasy-wise. He was a bit of a darling after that season for Florida. 47 points in 54 games, and everyone was jumping all over Marchment coming into last season, and then he puts up 31 points in his 68 games as a Star for his debut. This season starts slow, and now back to what he was almost a point-per-game player in that year for Florida, and that's what he is doing right now, and you have to pay attention. Also, the Stars this week, 4 games, Nashville, Chicago, and Minnesota twice. No disrespect, Steele. That team is banged up and not playing great. That's a good week for the Stars to turn it around. 4 games. Take a look at Mason Marchment as well. I got one more player, Steele, and I got 2 mentions. You want to go or should I go?
Yeah, well, I guess I'll finish up with my last player.
Yeah,
since you're dissing my Minnesota Wild, I
might
as well talk about them.
Yeah, let's.
That's where my last player comes from, and I'll make it real quick because I don't have a lot to say on it because I talked about the Minnesota Wild a lot on the last episode that I had. But Brock Faber has been absolutely killing it, in my opinion, for the Minnesota Wild with everything that's going on. 24% rostered right now. He had 3 assists in that 4-3 win over the Columbus Blue Jackets. 2 goals, 19 points on the season. The peripherals are pretty solid for a 22-year-old. 56 shots, 26 hits, 69 blocks. I like what he brings on that PP1 unit, the quarterbacking the power play. He's a young defenseman who really does the small things that a coach looks for. Makes the small passes, doesn't make very noticeable mistakes out there in the defensive zone. Again, as a young defenseman in this league right now. So I really like his game and where the Minnesota Wild are at right now with a few of their younger prospects and younger players on their team. I understand they're not a bad team. They're not a great team. They're somewhere right in the middle there. And I still think they're trying to figure it out. Obviously, they've dealt with a lot of injuries so far this season. Obviously, the new ones to Gustafsson and Kaprizov. But Matt Zuccarello is back in the lineup. Obviously, that's some great news for the Wild moving forward. But Brock Faber, if you need help on the blue line, just along there with Thomas Harley, those are 2 great young options for you for your weekly matchups.
I absolutely love Brock Faber. I think more people need to be talking about this kid because not only, and you and I talk about this a lot, trying to separate sometimes. This happened to me, Nick Suzuki. Nick Suzuki is like your prototypical player that you want on your team. Hockey IQ, sense, leadership, all that. That doesn't always translate into fantasy production. So looking at Brock Faber right now, I am excited. I think he is not even close to scratching the surface yet. In my opinion, he's a dark horse for the Calder. Dark horse, but he is going to finish in the top
plus
5.
1,000 right now for the Calder as well.
In my opinion, Steele, and I think you'll back me up from the preamble you just gave, more people need to pay attention to Brock Faber because he is going to be a top pairing defenseman in the NHL for a very long time. Keeper dynasty people, thank me later. Jump on Brock Faber. He might already be a keeper. One more player before the break very quickly, Steele, and then I got 2 after the break, and I'll keep them even quicker. This is one of your boys too. Gustav Forsling, very quietly, is one of those defensemen that doesn't always jump off the page, and I don't think he's a draftable defenseman, but he is awesome as a week-to-week fill-in. He is playing on the top pairing with Aaron Ekblad. The Florida Panthers you want a piece of right now. I'm telling you that much. If you're not buying into Forsling, go out there and grab a piece. But points in 3 straight games. He's got 5 points in his last 5 games. For some reason, he had 17 penalty minutes the other night. That was a wild one against the Coyotes. Anyway, Gustav Forsling, worth it. He's out there. 50% on ESPN, 60 on Yahoo. Panthers play the St. Louis Blues, the New Jersey Devils, and LA Kings this week. I don't hate it. Gustav Forsling, definitely. You need some help on the back end. In addition to Thomas Harley, I'd be looking at Forsling this week.
Yeah, he has been killing it recently as well. I have him in one of my leagues. I believe it's the competitive league.
I don't want to talk about those leagues, Steele, because it's not pretty.
We won't talk about it. It has not been pretty for you and I so far this season. Right. But it's been a lot of fun. Really enjoying it so far. Our second year doing this with the listeners out there. So thank you so much for all of you supporting us and joining the league this year. We're going to get over to big time bets. Flip has 2 more players he wants to talk about real quickly before Monday's big time bets. But this episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL regular season is wrapping up, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, which we urge you to do so, there's no better time to get into the action than right now. The app is super safe and easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and of course, the same game parlay, which is frequently on the Big Time Bet segment of this podcast. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
Attention hockey fans looking for NHL news and analysis? Look no further than the Locked On NHL podcast, offering daily insights on all the top NHL stories. From trade deadline and free agency rumors, teams on the rise, and discussion on the league's biggest stars, Locked On NHL has you covered for 30 minutes, 5 days a week. For your next listen, check out the Locked On NHL podcast, available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to hit the subscribe, leave a follow, and a 5-star review. We appreciate all that support you show us Monday through Friday. We're going to get over to big time bets where the money is made very, very soon. 4 games on the schedule for Monday, but Flip, 2 final players that you got to let everyone out there be aware of to target in their weekly matchups.
And they're probably already aware of them because I'm pretty sure you spoke about Martin Jones last week, and I know you spoke about Joey Decourt as well. Yes. So I'm not breaking it down because you just need to pay attention to these numbers. Joey Decourt is 10, 5, and 8. I don't know how they have so many overtime losses. Anyway, 10, 5, and 8, 2 shutouts, 922 save percentage, and the Seattle Kraken are playing really good hockey right now. He is up to 67% on Yahoo and up 24% in the last week on ESPN to 40. But Kraken this week, Buffalo, Washington, and Columbus. Joey Decourt this week, if he's still out there, go get him. And Martin Jones, they play San Jose, Colorado, and the Islanders, and then wrap the week with Detroit. He's going to get probably 3 of those 4. He's up 12% in the last 7 as well. Got to mention both of them because if you need a goalie, those are probably my top 2 fill-ins for this week.
Oh, man, I was so disappointed a couple of days ago. Joey Decourt in my one ESPN league was there for the takings. He's been there since he got this, the starting job, over 2 weeks now.
Something like
Finally,
that.
was like, okay, I'll go pick him up. The day I try to pick him up, somebody else outbids me and snags him from my roster. So I am still stuck with that absolute garbage man, Jonas Korpisalo from the Ottawa Senators. He's been killing my team right now, but let's not go down that train once again. Let's get over to big time bets where the money is made. 4 games on the schedule, 3 picks from both Flip and I. Flip, you start us off. How are you feeling for Monday?
Yeah, I'm liking them. 4 games, really liking my picks. It's been a bit of an up and down past week. Obviously, you and I have been doing episodes every single day, so we're back in the saddle again, baby. And I'm taking a look at the Pittsburgh Penguins on the money line. Penguins are playing the Philadelphia Flyers, and as much as the Flyers have been a good story so far, they're struggling right now. And when you look into the numbers head-to-head, obviously, you know how I feel about Sidney Crosby, but I didn't go there in this one. Pittsburgh 7-1-2 in their last 10 against Philly. Combine that with Philly not playing well right now, and that's all I need to hear because you also know I'm buying into this Pittsburgh Penguins club in the second half. They're 8-4 over their last 12 games as well, Steele. Hit me with Penguins on the money line. That's my first pick.
Yeah, that was a tough one for me to pinpoint who was going to win. That's why I stayed away from the money line, and I went to a player prop for this one. I went with the Travis Konechny anytime goal in this matchup. He's been absolutely killing it for the Flyers, even though they have been struggling to win games. He's still potting in goals. He's on a 3-game goal streak right now, 5 goals in his last 5 games. And again, just really feeling it. He's been the top player for the Philadelphia Flyers the entire season. I know Travis Sanheim was pretty good to start off the year, but Konechny's been the most consistent player for the Flyers so far. So he's been killing it. He's scoring goals. I'm going to take the player prop anytime goal from Travis Konechny for my first pick. Second pick, I'm going to go with the Avalanche on the money line, minus 134 for my lock of the night, actually. This is a little bit of a
spicy.
This is more of a gut pick of anything because looking at the trend, looking how the Avalanche have been playing of recently, especially against the Boston Bruins of all teams, I believe the Avalanche don't have a great record against the Boston Bruins in the last 10 games. I forget what the actual record is, but
6-3-1 actually, pretty good.
They're 6-3-1. I thought it was the opposite. Maybe never mind.
Yeah, Colorado's 6-3-1 in their last 10 against Boston.
I misread that then. So everyone, don't quote me on that one, but I'm still taking the Avalanche money line at minus 134. They're at home. They're 7-2-1 in the last 10 games. Georgiev hasn't been the greatest in the last 10 games. They don't really have a backup goaltender to really help him in other opportunities. So Georgiev's been getting a lot of the workload this season, and it seems to be catching up. But nevertheless, Avalanche money line minus 134 is my lock. Last pick, I'm going wild on the money line at plus 110. Marc-Andre Fleury, still one of the better goaltenders in the league. Maybe not as big as he once was, but still one of the better goaltenders in the league, in my opinion. He's playing on one of the best teams there, the Minnesota Wild, obviously. But that's going to be my final pick, Wild money line plus 110.
Yeah, I don't know about if I agree with any of those takes, Steele. And here we go, because we got a side bet that we haven't had in a while. I'm taking the Dallas Stars on the money line as my lock of the night. And I know they haven't played well. I understand they've lost 3 straight. One of those was to Montreal as well. They were all 1-goal games. And yeah, they still count as losses. They could have gone either way. Miro Heiskanen and Jake Ottinger, from the obvious statement of aside from a couple of forwards, those are their 2 most important pieces. Jake Ottinger is nearing a return. So I think as they start to return to health, I know Miro Heiskanen just went out, but Ottinger returning is going to be huge. Anyway, 7-1-2 in their last 10 against Minnesota. Points in 9 of 10 games. That's all I really need to hear for that one. That's my lock of the night, and perhaps my favorite pick of the night. And I was going to make it my lock because he is just so effing good, Steele. And I hate talking about him because he's a Boston Bruin. But David Pastrnak is an absolute stud. And in 14 career regular season games against the Colorado Avalanche, obviously East Coast, West Coast kind of thing here. They don't play a ton. 14 points in 14 career games, including 10 goals. Pasta, anytime goal, really feeling that one. Didn't get the odd up, but I think he is in for a big game because also you mentioned it. Georgiev's looked a little bit like Swiss cheese of late, and I know Colorado's got a good record. They're going to be there. They are allowing a bunch of games. I bet you if you dug into it, they have allowed a lot of 5, 6, or 7 goal games. That's just far too many if you're going to be a cup contender, which I still think they are. Anyway, Pasta, anytime goal. Let's get it.
Yeah, and I don't know if you saw that I believe it's been a week now, but Devin Taves calling out some of his teammates just for the lackluster play. So they haven't been great defensively as well, but neither is Georgiev in the blue paint. So Colorado has to be a lot better, but I think they'll get that win on Monday night against the Boston Bruins at home. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Once again, go check out Locked On Sports Today on YouTube. They've launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. They're here for you 24/7 every single day, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus the national shows covering every single league. So go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. And again, thank you so much for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. Have a great day. Good luck with all your bets out there. And we shall see you back here again tomorrow.
Peace.
The NFL regular season is wrapping up, but don't worry because there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is so easy to use, and there are plenty of ways to bet. You can do live same-game parlays. You can find bets in the brand new Explore tab. You can even make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, the single best way to find popular parlays. All that and so much more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL and of the Locked On Podcast Network.
You shouldn't have to worry when you buy tickets for your next big event. And with Game Time, you don't have to. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. With incredible last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Download the Game Time app today, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
Hey, Prime members, you can listen to this Locked On podcast ad-free on Amazon Music. Download the Amazon Music app today.